All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm attorney Demario Solomon Simmons. I'm the founder and executive director of the Justice for Greenwood, and I represent the last two living survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre. And I'm excited today. This is a historic day as we are in the very beginnings of Black History Month. And I'm standing up here with survivors and representatives of survivors and descendants from around this community to talk about something that is truly extraordinary and I think is going to be historic. As many of you know, after years of us pushing the Department of Justice to investigate the Tulsa Race Massacre, they announced that they were doing a review and evaluation back in September. And just a few weeks ago, the DOJ released their report. And in that report, they made it clear once again what we already knew. The Tulsa Race Massacre was a military-style attack on Greenwood that was state-sanctioned, that destroyed the Greenwood community and impacted survivors and descendants over the last 104 years. And while we appreciated the DOJ reaffirming that information, we were very disappointed that they decided that they were not going to do anything about it. But we have been planning for that contingency with our Project Greenwood, which is a plan that has been developed by myself and my team based upon our over 25 years of working on this issue. And this is a plan that I'm excited that we have shared with the city and with our new mayor, and he's expressed support for aspects of our particular plan. We understand the moment that we're in, but we also understand that we must continue to persevere. You know, Greenwood was created by 5 basic principles: community love, ownership, freedom mind state, wealth concentration, and resiliency. And that's what this Project Greenwood is about, the resiliency, particularly of our 2 last living survivors, Viola Ford Fletcher and Leslie Benefield Randall, who are 110 years old and have been a part of this process every step of the way. So what is Project Greenwood? First of all, it is a comprehensive plan to not only restore Greenwood, but to move this city forward and create the one Tulsa that we've been talking about for decades. Project Greenwood is good for the survivors and descendants because it provides them a tangible benefit to move forward. It's something that we've needed for 104 years. But it's also great for the city of Tulsa because this will promote true healing and conciliation for our city. It will remove the dark cloud that sits on top of Tulsa now because of the massacre. And as we move into the 105th anniversary next year, the eyes of the world once again will be on Tulsa. And we don't want what happened during the centennial. Well, the lack of repair really was a problem for us to properly acknowledge the massacre. Project Greenwood is legal. First of all, here in the state of Oklahoma, public money can be expended, Christy, for any public good, any public purpose. Project Greenwood is also legal because it's not race-based. It's harm-based. And that is very, very important. It is based upon, are you a descendant, a verified descendant of someone who suffered the massacre? In fact, a lot of people don't know. We have 9 Black people in our descendant community who suffered the massacre just like those Black individuals inside of Greenwood. That is very important to understand. Project Greenwood, the first thing that we ask for is we immediately must compensate our 2 living survivors. It will be one of the worst tragedies in the history of this country, let alone this city, for these 210-year-old women to pass away without justice that they so rightly deserve. That is our first core principle of Project Greenwood. Anything less will not allow the cloud to be lifted. And that can happen through a victims' compensation fund that should also take care of the outstanding claims. You know, right down the street here on Greenwood, there's a big block granted for those who are not from Tulsa that lists all of the claims that are still unpaid. You cannot move forward as a city with those claims being unpaid. Likewise, when you have known murder victims like Dr. A.C. Jackson and a new victim who was just identified back in July for the first time in 103 years, Mr. C.L. Daniel, a World War I veteran, those things must be compensated to remove the stain for the city of Tulsa. We're asking for creation of a business program for verified descendants. One of the worst tragedies of the massacre is that it ripped away so many businesses. Over 200 businesses were destroyed. More than a third of those businesses never came back at all. None of those businesses exist today from the time of the massacre. This is a program that, again, will be set up for those verified descendants that are here in the city of Tulsa. We're asking for a scholarship program. We think this is pretty unique because not only are we saying this program should be for those who live here in Tulsa, but any descendant that's willing to relocate to Tulsa and bring their talents here, this program will benefit them. And this program is not just for college, trade school, vocational school, and we want to be part of the vision of Tulsa. You have different programs that are bringing people to Tulsa. We think this fits right in. But we want to make sure when we bring people to Tulsa, we're prioritizing descendants who have suffered this massacre for 104 years. A surviving entity program. We only have 14 entities surviving from the massacre, 13 churches, and my beloved Booker T. Washington High School. And you're going to hear from one of the pastors representing one of the surviving entities, churches, who really stood in the gap when the federal government, state government, and local government abrogated their responsibilities. These churches have been a backbone of the Greenwood community. It is only right that something is done to continue to make sure that they can continue to move forward and grow over the next 104 years. We presented a descendant employment preference program. Again, this is not race-based. This is based on being a verified descendant. This is something that people do, governments do all across this nation. If you are a verified descendant and you apply for a position, that should give you a preference. That doesn't mean you automatically get the job. You still have to have baseline qualifications. And we know that. It's always been the case. But there should be a preference. The same, we have veterans preferences and we have our Native American preferences. Same with our contracting program. If there is a contractor bidding on a contract here in the city of Tulsa with a company that is 51% or more owned by a verified descendant, they should receive a preference. Again, this happens every day all across this nation. This is not revolutionary. What is revolutionary is that we want to make sure we are again centering verified descendants, which is a program of Justice for Greenwood through our We Are Greenwood genealogy project. This is what we do. We have 4 genealogists from around this nation that verify, we call it chronicling. And in our program, we already had over 200 people and another 100 that's ready to be verified. So this is not rocket science to get people verified, but we're going to make sure that the right people are getting these access to these benefits or these resources. One of the most unequal things or unjust things about the massacre, that those descendants and survivors who have been owed for 104 years, they have been paying into the city of Tulsa, paying city taxes, paying city expenses, paying utility bills. We simply say for those verified descendants, they should have immunity for those city fees and expenses and utilities for a set period of time. It's only fair to reduce and repair what? The harm. We believe and know that many people died during the massacre. We know about 3,000 people disappeared. We don't really know what happened to them. But we know a lot of the land, people had to leave, they had to run and never come back. So we've asked the city to conduct a historic land audit in the Greenwood district, and any land that the city has title to that is due to the massacre, that land should be returned back to their rightful families, or those families should be paid fair market value for that particular land. Again, these are things that have happened across this country. This is how you repair the harm, and this is how you move this city forward. Probably our most famous murder victim of the massacre was a great Dr. A.C. Jackson, who was called by the Mayo brothers of the Mayo Clinic, quote unquote, the finest Negro surgeon, their word, in America. He was a great doctor. He also owned a hospital on Greenwood. And Dr. Jackson, this is very well known. He came out of his home on Detroit Avenue with his hands up. He was shot not once, not twice, but 3 times. And this great doctor was taken to a concentration camp downtown. It's not my word, concentration camp, that's Tulsa World's word in 1921. And he bled out. He bled to death. And today in Greenwood, there is no hospital to service the Greenwood and North Tulsa community. So we think it's only right that a level 1 trauma center hospital is built and called the Dr. A.C. Jackson Memorial Hospital. You can clap. And this Black History Month, and this year, as the attacks on Black history are coming fast and furious from all across this nation, we think it's vitally important that the city makes June 1st of each year an official city holiday. To ensure that the massacre is never forgotten, to ensure we have proper remembrance activities that includes survivors, that includes descendants, that includes everyone working in the Greenwood space to move this city forward. Again, we want to have unity. We want to have one Tulsa. And this will help us move forward. And this is something the city can do. This is something the city must do. And this is something that we believe is a model, Project Greenwood overall, but particularly this, for cities across this nation, to make law, to make sure you remember these issues so they cannot be wiped away by certain powers and forces. Next, we're asking the city, many people don't know that we've been in litigation with the city for 4.5 years, trying to get all the records related to the massacre. Right now, we have 2 lawsuits that are pending. We've asked the city to settle those cases and provide us all records that they have of the massacre. This is important for our educational aspect of it, so we can understand more about the massacre. Even over the last 5 to 10 years, with so much more being learned about the massacre, we still know less than 10% of everything that occurred, because many of the records are in the hands of the city and other perpetrators. And lastly, we believe that there is an open crime scene down in Oaklawn Park. We believe that if you're pulling individuals out the ground for the first time in 103 years and identifying them like C.L. Daniels, there must be a proper investigation. It's only right, it's only just. And again, when this first started back in 2018, city leadership said this was a homicide investigation. And we think that's very well important. Just really quickly, there are legal precedents for everything I've laid out. We have the 9/11 bombing fund right here in Oklahoma. We had the Oklahoma City Bombing Victims Compensation Fund, which had not just compensation, but many of the programs that we're talking about. And just recently in Palm Springs, California, back in November, from an issue that happened in the 1950s, the city of Palm Springs stepped up and repaired the damage that was done to 137 families who had their homes bulldozed unjustly during urban development. In Greenwood, we're talking about over 10,000 people. We're talking about over 1,550 homes and businesses. We're talking about 104 years of a wound, bringing down descendants, but also this entire city. So before I answer any of your questions, we have some representatives from the community and descendants who would like to say a brief word about why they support Project Greenwood.
So I'm Marlon Lavenhart. I'm the senior minister at All Souls Unitarian Church here in Tulsa for the last 25 years. And for the last 2 decades, I have been speaking to different groups about this idea of reparations. And I've spoken to white groups and African-American and groups from all walks of life in Tulsa. And across the board, even those who were skeptical about reparations, as we got into the conversation, everybody eventually says, yes, it is the morally and ethically right thing to do. And where the conversation often has broken down is people saying, yeah, but how can we do it? And they'll say, who will get it? And how will we do it? And where will the funds come from? These questions have been the stumbling block for a lot of people who know and say, yes, absolutely, it's the right thing to do. And that's why today I'm really excited, because Project Greenwood finally gives us the roadmap that we need, that is realistic, that's achievable, that's redemptive, that will not just benefit the descendants of 1921, but also the entire city of Tulsa at the same time. Now, I want to say to those who are still unsure or still skeptical about this, to say, I want to ask you to pray on it. Because I believe that if you pray on this question of, is this the right thing to do, that your God and your prayers will lead you to know that this is indeed absolutely the right thing to do, both for your own soul and for the soul of our collective soul as a city. This is our chance to turn that moral disgrace into an act of divine grace. This is our chance to transform what has been a deep shame upon our city into something that will bring a positive name to our city. This is our chance to take something that is wrong and to make it right. Tulsa, in light of our historic division, let's make the decision to become a vision of hope and prosperity for all. I hope you will pray on it, and I hope you will join us. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here with you all on this historic day. My name is Tyrance Billingsley. I am a descendant of Greenwood, and I'm a lifelong resident of this city, and I'm an innovator. It's important for us to understand that what Greenwood represents, not just to African Americans, but to all of this country, is exactly what we have always wanted to embody. Innovators who had a vision and who built the life for themselves, regardless of obstacles. So when I stand here today and I support Project Greenwood, not just as a descendant, but as an American, and people who may not have a direct connection, I need you to understand, this is not about race. This is about being human. This is about upholding what it means to be an American, that promise that we have struggled to live up to. We have a chance for our city to be a beautiful example of what that looks like. Black Wall Street was an example, and it was destroyed. And so many people, especially in today's world, would really just have us say, let's forget about it, let's move forward. We do want to move forward. We want to move forward the right way. We want to remove the stain from Tulsa's name and from America's name. Because while we fight and we are anger, we do not fight out of hatred. We fight out of love for our people, for what they built, and love for this country even. That is what Project Greenwood represents. And as a descendant, I'm proud to support it. I'm proud to support what it will mean for people across this country to see that we are a city that will address its harms and will create pathways for people who have been harmed to rebuild and to build the kind of life that they always should have had. The dream is for us to build something incredible and pass it down to our children. So many children and grandchildren were robbed of that because of what happened during the massacre. And we want to repair that harm. We want to restore the name of Tulsa, and we want to restore the name of this country, take a step in that direction. So we hope you will join us, and we hope when you do, you'll not see some distant cause that you are separated from, but you'll see a chance for Tulsa and for America to be all that we know it should be. Thank you.
My name is Jackie Emerson Weary. I am a descendant of the 1921 massacre. My grandfather had a hotel on Greenwood, the Emerson Hotel. If you go down and look on the building there, across from the Greenwood Historic Center, you will see his name of the hotel, Emerson Hotel, sitting there. He was an entrepreneur. He also had a cab company. Even post-Race Massacre, he still had the spirit, even after the hotel was ransacked. He built over 100 homes in North Tulsa for those who were displaced by the massacre, the 1921 massacre. It was an atrocity. Imagining what would happen if the money was still here for the descendants to have their own business right now, in the spirit living on in them from their forefathers and mothers who had businesses down there, such as my grandfather. It's time to right the wrong. It's time for us to come together. It's time for North Tulsa to have those businesses that we need to be a great community. As Attorney Demario Solomon said, we need a hospital. We need doctors. We need lawyers. We need the business funds from Project Greenwood will help those things and make it possible. I'm sure the spirit, just like it me to be an entrepreneur, is in most of us who had, and those descendants that had their forefathers, grandfathers, fathers, had businesses. We want that spirit to live on. And the only way right now that we can do it, that the city of Tulsa does right and approves the funds so that the businesses that once were can still be now and forevermore. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dr. Goss, pastor of the Morning Star Baptist Church here in North Tulsa, and I am ecstatic about the opportunity to be here today. Project Greenwood means a great deal, not only to the Morning Star Baptist Church, where I serve as the under shepherd, but all the 13 churches that were affected by the Race Massacre. There was a time when the church was the conduit for most of the change and most of the benefits for those who were underserved and those who were forgotten. Seems like we've gotten away from being a voice for those who had no voice. Then came Demario Solomon Simmons, a young man who had a dream that was realized by his dedication over the last 25 years towards this cause. What he did for me as a pastor was to remind me that my job was more than just preaching the beauty of heaven and the life to come, but also how to enhance the life of those who are here right now. And he taught me that the church needs to plug in to what was going on in its community and around it. Project Greenwood represents for me what the church lacked over a period of time, but he has given us the incentive necessary to get back in this fight. Not only has he become a voice through Project Greenwood for those underserved, but he's also resourced through his own ability and through Project Greenwood's own working, the church with what it needed to help be a conduit to the underserved and those in our community. And I'm grateful to Project Greenwood for that. Not only a voice, but also economically. The resources they get, they funnel it through the churches so that we can stand in the gap where the government lacks. And I appreciate that effort because it showed me that this was not a self-seeking, self-righteous endeavor, but it was one that would empower a people that would be otherwise forgotten. Not only that, but he showed me that sometimes things covered up don't heal well. And he dared to snatch the Band-Aid off of an open wound and expose it for what it was and watch it heal. We're in this fight as churches, and I think I speak on behalf of every church that benefited from the work of this great cause. We speak on behalf and want you to know we stand by you. shoulder to shoulder and heart to heart, and we're willing to put in the work, the limited resources we may have, and our time and sweat equity into making sure that this dream is realized. We partner with you, we love you, and we appreciate everyone, and hope that you will come and join this noble cause. Thank you.
Hi, I'm LaDonna Penny. I am a descendant. My grandmother is Mother Randall. I stand here representing my grandmother and Mother Fletcher because they both are not here. When I speak about my grandmother, I get emotional because I know what she's went through. And I know what both of them have gone through. And to know that they're still here and they're still fighting. And I believe in this program. It can help them. They both want to see justice before they die. I'm praying that God gives them more years, but we don't know. But if this is the opportunity to give them their flowers while they're still here, then this city needs to do it. They need to step up. I've always said when I spoke that the city knows that this happened, and they continue to bank money and put it back in the city. Instead of just putting it in the city, put it in the descendants and the survivors. Do something. I've always said that we need a hotel back out north. We need a hospital more than a lot of things. We need a hospital. We need a real grocery store out north. So please, I'm begging, and I know I shouldn't, but I'm begging the city, please give my grandmother and Mother Fletcher and the descendants, mostly those two, their flowers while they're still here.
Amen.
Give them justice.
Amen.
I'm Tiffany Crutcher, and I am the Executive Director of the Terrence Crutcher Foundation and a proud board member of Justice for Greenwood. As I stand here today, I'm thinking about Professor Charles Ogletree, the late Professor Ogletree. I'm thinking about the late Eddie Faye Gates. I'm thinking about all of the survivors. I'm thinking about my grandmother. I'm thinking about Professor Eric Miller, and they taught me, Eddie Faye Gates, Professor Ogletree, thinking about Kevin Ross. They taught me how to honor and care for the living survivors in this community. And so today is a moment of faith, fight, and fortitude. This moment is the result of years of relentless work, of pushing forward despite setback after setback, of refusing to accept injustice as the final word. To be honest, Demario, there were times I wondered if we had the resolve to continue this arduous journey towards healing and repair. But then I think about my ancestors, like my great-grandmother, Rebecca Brown Crutcher, who stood in the ashes of Greenwood and refused to give up. I think of the families who rebuilt despite the unimaginable loss, the survivors who never stopped fighting, LaDonna, and the descendants who carry their legacy forward today. They refused to abandon hope. As the crumbling, smoldering remains of Greenwood surrounded them, they still believed that they could build something better. As my dear friend Brian Stevenson always reminds us, hopelessness is the enemy of justice. This community could have fallen into hopelessness after the United States Supreme Court dismissed our case a few decades ago, Chief, but they didn't give up. This community could have fallen into hopelessness after the Oklahoma Supreme Court dismissed our case, but we didn't give up. We could have fallen into hopelessness when the Department of Justice recently stated that the statute of limitations had run out. But yet again, we didn't give up. We refuse to
That's
give
right.
up. History has prescribed today's moment. We are here because justice demands it, because truth, Christy, requires it, because our ancestors built a foundation of resilience that still moves us towards action. And so we hold fast to the words of the late Hughes Van Ellis, a man who carried the memory of Greenwood until his very last breath. And I quote, "All we're asking for is for America to be what it says it is." And I'll add, all we're asking for is for Tulsa to be the one Tulsa that they say they are. And Hughes Van Ellis always ended by saying, "We are one. We are one." And today, with Project Greenwood, we are taking a historic step forward. This is the most comprehensive plan yet to repair the harm. A plan embraced by massacre descendants, public officials, a plan embraced by faith leaders and business owners alike. We are not just remembering history, but we are making it.
That's right.
And we will not stop until justice is served. So I close with a call to action for everyone who hears my voice. We need for you to join the Project Greenwood movement by going to justiceforgreenwood.org/Project Greenwood. And we look forward to Mayor Nichols helping us take this across the finish line to make Tulsa truly one Tulsa. Thank you so much.
Great job. You know, Tiffany mentioned Mayor Nichols, and I must underscore his leadership here to be a receptive partner in this process. We're very appreciative of that. I also want to recognize that we have the chairwoman of the Beyond Apology Commission and many members of the Beyond Apology Commission, Descendant, Jackie Evans, and others. We thank you for being here. And we've already talked to them. They are 100% supportive of this, and we're going to be working together and with hopefully with Mayor Nichols to make this a reality. So with that, I will ask. Oh, you said.
I forgot to recognize my father,
okay.
Reverend Dr. Joey Crutcher, who's in the room. I would be remiss.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Reverend Crutcher, good to see you. And with that, I'll take a few questions.
You know, I'm gonna start it off with a bang. What so far has Mayor Nichols, approved of? Because you mentioned that he has supported some of these items. What of those has he supported so far?
Well, I'm going to let Mayor Nichols answer those questions. I can just tell you that he's very receptive, and we feel really good about our opportunities over the next couple of weeks.
This question comes from Audra Birch at the New York Times. Is there an estimated price tag for the project and an estimated number of verified descendants?
Yeah. Well, as far as the number of descendants that we know in our network of Just for Greenwood is over 200. We know that they're here in the city of Tulsa. There's many, many, many more. But do we know if they're verified yet? Like, there are people that I know are descendant, and they just need to go through our program. And that's going to be very important. I'm glad Audra asked that particular question, because you need to make sure your documentation is correct and ready to go whenever this is rolled out. Because the people that are verified, again, this is not race-based, this is harm-based. So you have to be able to show that you either are a descendant of someone who lived in Greenwood during the massacre, owned property in Greenwood during the massacre, worked in Greenwood during the massacre. Those things are very important, and we want to help you with that.
You outlined a lot of different projects. Is there a plan of attack for which one comes first?
Well, the first thing first for us is the two survivors. Listen, they're 110 years old. Every day is a blessing, but we have to be realistic. They are 110 years old. And honestly, just completely being frank with you, every day our team talk about, we got to get this done. Time is of the essence. 5 years ago, when I started this new iteration of trying to get justice, there were 4 survivors. One by the name of Hal Singer, who was living in France. And he died a month before we filed the litigation back in September 2020. So we lost him before we could even get this process started. And then our great friend and mentor that Tiffany mentioned, and I always get a little choked up thinking about Uncle Red, Hughes Van Ellis, because he wanted to see this day so bad. And we lost him in October of 2023. So to lose one of them when we're this close to getting something happen would be, to me, that's just incomprehensible. I think it would be bad for, obviously, them and their families. I think it'd be horrible for the city. And quite frankly, for our new dynamic mayor. I think it just will be a bad deal overall. So that's our first priority. But obviously, there are many things that don't even cost money, like the holiday, the records. These are things that can happen immediately. So
on the national level, there's another project roadmap that conservatives are going by 2025. And there's been relentless attacks against diversity, equity, inclusion, and anything that seems to benefit people who've been historically harmed, who aren't white. Do you foresee any attempts, even though this is not race-based, do you foresee any attempts to to file lawsuits against this program, and what plans do you have in place to defend against that?
well, obviously, we cannot control those people of bad faith that want to be in opposition. That's been happening for 104 years. So yes, that's probably going to come. But we feel very confident, based upon my legal team, that this was withstand any legal scrutiny. And quite frankly, this is just a moment of courage. It's a moment of courage to do the right thing. You know, one of my heroes, Thurgood Marshall, always said, you do what's right, let the law catch up. And in this situation, the law is clear that this is harm-based, so it can move forward, and this is the right thing to do. So I'm confident, but I've been confident for 27 and a half years. So like I told my team, I feel good, but we're gonna run through the finish line.
For 103 years, 104 years almost, the city of Tulsa has not even acknowledged or taken any accountability, and that's been the lawsuits time and time again, and what you've really been pushing for. And so now with Mayor Nichols in office, jumping on board with elements of the project, how big of a step forward is this to know that, a new mayor in charge of the city is willing to take that accountability?
Oh, that's amazing. The lawsuits was all about getting to this point. There was never a desire to have all of this commotion, particularly, honestly, with some folks that are our partners or people we've worked with for decades. And so now to be here to a part that we believe we have a willing partner in City Hall, I got to give the leadership to Mayor Nichols, because I do think he has the courage to do the right thing. All right. Yeah, we can clap for that, Mayor Nichols. But listen, as Tiffany said, go to justiceforgreenwood.org/Project Greenwood. We have a little small letter that you can sign and support. Tell everyone that you know. I believe this is going to happen. We're hoping it happens very soon. As I said, time's of the essence. This is Black History Month. It'd be a great time for it to happen. And thank you for everyone that came out. Anyone is a descendant or descendant surviving church, would you please stand and be recognized? Excellent. Yeah. And certainly want to recognize my relative, Chief Amazon, who gives the best tours here in Tulsa. He and I have been on this journey, almost 30 years. And I think I can speak for you. We didn't know we'd ever get to this point to have someone in City Hall that'd be willing to actually work with us. So thank you very much. Oh.